My name is Gary Quinn, and I'm the director of the EMDR Institute of Israel. HAP was a, a clear idea of joining because of seeing so many places, so many disasters around the world, and realizing that being part of HAP was going to enable so many people to get the training in EMDR and to get accepted EMDR around the world. And then it took away a sense of real helplessness that I'd been experiencing before because we then were able to successfully um, treat the people needing treatment.
HAP was asking for somebody to go to Bangladesh on a project, and they needed a medical person to go along. I am also a nurse, and so our youngest child had just graduated from college, and I thought, I can do that. I can do that. So on that trip, I met a number of people, one of whom was a person who was actually working in India and was affiliated with the colleague that I mentioned earlier. And so that developed into many trips to India and to Asia to help develop capacity there. Our colleagues in India, along with the support from Dr. Shapiro and from trauma recovery, certainly a lot of support from trauma recovery, those colleagues started working collaboratively with each other to build capacity within their own community, within their own country, and then eventually formed EMDR India. Then they formed with the other countries around them in Asia, they formed EMDR Asia. And so that organization, in terms of capacity building, has grown from one individual with a question, how do I do this? To a multinational regional EMDR association that has not only their own trainings, but also their own trauma response networks, and they respond to natural disasters all over Asia.
Around 2000, 2001, in, um in India, there was a massive earthquake, and which was first time, at least in our life, we saw the destruction from 40% to 100% of the infrastructure and human life. And we had just learned EMDR. We had no field experience except a few personal cases. So I wrote a letter to the trauma recovery teachers and trainers and volunteers that we would like to use that. Do you have any material which we can follow? And they went out of the way, especially Rosalie Thomas and Anne Kafuri. They went out of the way and encouraged us, taught us, and said, don't worry, you can make mistake, but still it will work. So please go ahead. So that was so inspiring that we landed up in that city, all volunteers, 40 of us. And we were looked after by NGOs and religious organizations, and we lived in the tent and without any much facility. And by rotation, for 6 months, we continued to work with 16,000 children and hundreds of parents, teachers, and some of the war veterans. Children were hesitating to go to the classrooms because of the fear of safety, fear of not being safe. And with EMDR, in no time, they started to go to the classroom. And then they would come home and encourage their parents also that something they are doing, that has a magical, and children found their own strength to deal with the trauma. And that gave us such a huge inspiration that we made a real um, presence of EMDR therapy in such a quick time. And that is my why and how my inspiration came from trauma recovery.
We had a team that went uh, mainly from Israel to Thailand after the tsunami. All the children then were doing the group protocol for children by Nacho and Lucy, and they did what the protocol, and we didn't know what was going to happen because they had been staying away from the water where they lived their whole lives for a whole month because of fear of the water. And so then we lined them up to not knowing what they were going to do. And now you already get an idea of this face. They went in and they jumped right into the water. One of the reasons why this story is so important to me is that it is a place where a small number of people can have an impact which is not believable.